Hi, welcome to this Open Security Summit session in October 2023. And I'm going to be talking about a project that I've been working on my spare time, which I published quite a lot of details, but I want to kind of go a bit more into the workflows and how it works. And it's basically the idea of creating a bot, a GenAI bot, ChatGPT, but actually eventually will be powered by, Bedrock and Bard and all the other Vertex AI and basically some of the big GenAI engines, LLMs out there. And the idea is to be a kind of a one-stop shop for board directors to talk about cybersecurity. So it's about teaching board members about cybersecurity. Actually, it's about also, for example, allowing new board members or people who want to become board members to learn more about cybersecurity, and also actually allows CISOs and other professionals to talk to board members and communicate with it. So kind of what we've done was, we kind of created, there's some content here. So this idea started by, hey, let's create some content for board members that provide information. The problem is kind of typical one, right? The problem is you have this, but then what from here should I know about? What matters? What's important? How do you make this in context to a particular board member? And just for context, the problem as a CISO to communicate with board members or even board members to ask questions down is that for this to really work, you have to be able to provide something that is actually in context with that individual's personality, knowledge, culture, language, understanding, and even conversation, right? Because as they evolve their thinking, their understanding, they're going to be asking different questions and they're going to evolve. And to be honest, just about every board member I met, they're very clever, they're really sharp. They just might not have IT or technology or cybersecurity experience. So we need to plug that in. So the idea is to create Athena. We actually have 3 bots, but I'll walk you through the first one. And the idea of Athena is this cybersecurity advisor. So just quickly give you a tour. You go in here and you say, hey, good morning, who are you and what do you do? And then you submit a question. So the coolest thing is that you could see now, and this is powered by ChatGPT 3.5, by the way, is that it's able to give information. Hey, I'm Athena, your cybersecurity advisor from Cyber Boardroom. My main purpose is to assist board members like you with cybersecurity questions and concerns. So what's cool about this is say, hey, it's an interaction. So what we're trying to figure out, and this is one of the powers of ChatGPT, and I really want to stress that, if you want to get something out of this session, is about thinking how you can create agents that really augment certain individuals, but also allows to capture knowledge in a way that is now shared with others in a much more effective way, especially in a language way. And in fact, one of the sessions that just happened is that we created a really cool thread model that we passed to ChatGPT, and then we actually created a game, almost like a bot, to test developers, to test users on that environment, right? So, which is pretty cool, and that was very developer specific. So here you can say, I'm here to help to understand the cybersecurity challenge and risks within your company. So you can say, okay, hi, and then it's always good to be polite. Remember that, it's all about the more polite you are, the more polite it is, right? So again, there's no need to be rude here. So you can say, hi, and you can say, okay, I'm from, let's say, I think, what was the user I used? Government. Okay, I'm from, let's say, UK government organization, and organizations where I need to know what is cybersecurity, why it is, and how it applies to me, right? And how it applies, right, to my world. And you could even say, I'm aware that it is very important, right? And all these things are kind of relevant. So if you say, I'm aware it's very important, in a way, the Athena, the bot, should not start by explaining why cybersecurity is important. You should say, you're already there. And this is the idea. The idea is you create a bot environment, and I will show you in a second just how much or how almost easy it was to create these bots at this level. So you basically ask the question, and now it's going to say, look, it's great to have some from government organizations seeking insights about cybersecurity. So it's now start to explain what is cybersecurity? So you could see, refers to the practice of protecting computer systems, network, and data from digital attacks and authorized and access, right? And then you say the concept of government organization is of more importance. And then here's the key points: data protection, national security, public trust, compliance, and regulation, right? That you should know. And then you can start to zoom in. You can say, okay, can you zoom in on data protection? So the point here is now you can have an interaction conversation, and you can start to basically keep going down in a way. The nice thing of ChatGPT in this case, and this is without even doing a lot of clever prompting, without a lot of specific areas. It already has quite a lot of basically good set of content, which is here. You can argue that data classification, access controls, encryption, these are all really, really good stuff. And so then you could say, okay, so what questions should I ask, my CISO, right? And what's cool about this, you could see that he has context, and he understands that CISO is the Chief Information Security Officer. Remember that he still understands that it's a board member, right? And they care about cybersecurity. So now you get some really, really nice questions that, to be honest, I would love to be in the receiving end from, one of our board members. And one of the features we're going to add in the future is actually to be able to customize these based on the user, but also be able to have a workflow where we can then take these questions, let the CISOs ask the questions, get information back. So have a much better workflow. So, and now you could see, right, that's basically the workflow. And you could also ask, what are my legal responsibilities, which is again something that a board member would also care about. And you could say, like a board member, you have legal responsibilities concerning cybersecurity, and then these are the areas that it matters there, right? So in fact, it even has directors, fiduciary rules to act in the best interest of the organization. So this is, you could see that as a board member, this starts to provide really good information. And you could also zoom in. So the person that say, okay, I have an MBA, let's say MBA, like football, let's say a law. So can you explain, ransomware for me, right? And so the power here is going to say, okay, so now is going to give a football analogy, but also take into account that the person understands quite quite a bit of business. So this is actually quite cool. Like, so you can see that here's a ransomware analogy for so as a defense team, each computer representing a player, right? Ransomware is like opposing team striker that inflates your network and holds your player computers hostage, right? So it's quite cool, right? To be able to explain this in a ways they understand. And in fact, I was playing around an issue with this, and I wrote a post where I asked ChatGPT to explain Kubernetes, and I put on LinkedIn, and I have a lot of people who says, hey, I use Kubernetes quite a lot and never understand it. So being able to tell it as a story is super critical. So now you could say, right, it provides that information in this particular structure. Now you could also do some cool stuff here. So one of the things that we've mapped here, we said, okay, do you have siblings, right? And you'll see in a second why this matters, right? So in this case, you say, actually, it does have two siblings. There's two bots here, right? There's Odin and Minerva. Odin is the tech bot that supports the technical aspects of cybersecurity and enhanced capabilities. And Minerva is the business bot to assist with commercial matters, right? To ensure that we have the best service. So one of the things I'm also playing around with here is this idea of creating this set of bots that each one is focused on the right thing. And then basically it really allows the segmentation of duties, but also allows to have bots that are focused on specific tasks in specific environments, all powered by APIs, which is really cool. And you can even do like little joke things. So you could say I've mapped to siblings, so there's 3 bots, and I can say anybody else, and then it's going to say, actually, there's another sibling called Bruno, right? This joke makes sense if you see it in Canto, but we don't tend to talk about him much. Let's just say it's a bit quirky, blah, blah, blah. So this is actually funny because sometimes you actually come up with really cool, funny jokes about it. But what's important is, you can see that even now, and this is quite primitive still, it's already quite a decent experience, for example, for a board member, for somebody who wants to learn more about cybersecurity. So the question is, how is it done? right? And also the cost. And by the way, it's very, very little because this thing runs on AWS, it's all Lambdas, so it's actually super cheap, right? So I wrote this post where he had quite, basically what I really put a lot of details, and I'm kind of going through, I'm going to explain it through here, right? So I've covered this bit. Athena from the Cyber Boardroom is designed to provide cybersecurity advice. You've seen that. And this is what I was just showing. The Cyber Boardroom is what I was showing you. Please go in, you can create an account. And there's an account that you can go in, create. This is using Cognito. So the first interesting technology that I'm leveraging AWS technologies. So I'm basically using Cognito to implement these workflows. So this is actually a Cognito workflow, which has a bit of an interesting usability bug, where as soon as you type the username, it starts to give you what's wrong with your password. And I have at least one user being very confused because he thought that, this username was wrong. So you can see that's actually a good example of what not to do from a security usability. So once you've done that and you register, you will basically arrive at that environment. But actually, behind the scenes for this version, I'm changing it for the next version. This is actually running on Hugging Face, and Hugging Face is great. It's a really great platform, especially for a lot of models to experiment. So you can actually, have the same experience in Hugging Face. So you can see that all I'm doing on the other side is embedding this Hugging Face basically environment where you get the same thing from here, right? So do you have that question? For example, here, and you got the same thing here. In fact, this one has a cool feature. If you go in there, you actually get a nice, little description to share, which is actually not bad. But it's actually really easy to do, right? And the thing that is interesting here is to show you, and I'll show you in a second, is the prompt that was used to create this. So, well, let's continue. So here's the login. I walk you through this. So when you get there, you basically get you log in. The main, of course, is Athena, which we've gone through. Here's the questions now. And one of the things I gave you a couple of good examples is the kind of questions to ask, which, by the way, we want to add to the UI. And things like this. Look, I work for the finance industry. What should I care about? What questions should I ask my CISO? What are the regulations I should be aware of? What are my legal obligations? What's the best way to learn about cybersecurity? Why cybersecurity matters, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And supply chain, cost, a lot of business. And then, again, if it doesn't have a mature cybersecurity program, why is good? What is the best ROI? So you can see it gives you good answers. And that's a nice answer. What's the average percentage of the IT budget? It goes, actually, will be 10, 50%. That would be cool to get that, right? But it's, again, a good example of the kind of question that you want board members to be asking, right? And again, please share some of your threads with me. And then here you go also, and then you can also ask things like this, right? So for example, you can come in there and say, why are you called Athena, right? And this is a good example of ChatGPT actually having a good level of understanding, because I never said it was ancient Greek, etc. But he has that reference, and you could see that in a way ChatGPT was able to figure this connection, which is actually correct to represent my role, because just as Athena is known for wisdom and strategy, I am to provide insight, strategic advice. This is really cool, right? Like, in a way, we didn't code this, as you'll see in a second, but it's a good example of ChatGPT ability to provide some of the data sources, and then in a way control the hallucinations, because it's actually not that crazy. And then here, what about siblings? Yes, he has two siblings, Odin and Minerva. And there you go. If you see Encanto, yeah, there's sibling we don't talk about it. Let's say, unique personalities. You can see you got these variations. And even here, you can, why those names? So you can see the names going there. Now, this is an interesting one, right? Because you'll see in a second. Yeah, I can go here and I says, okay, what is your current version? And this is also the start at the beginning of the example of where part of the power here is also going to be to add a lot of embedding, is to add a lot of information about. So you can see here, it actually says 7.7, includes minor backend changes, new interface, etc. And now it's important because I have that in the prompt, because before I had that in the prompt, it did hallucinate pretty spectacularly. And again, that's the kind of things you want to look. So how does it work, right? What is it needed to actually get ChatGPT to behave like this? This is the cool thing. This here is the prompt that was needed. So you actually can see it's not a lot, right? So you are the Cyber Boardroom advisor called Athena, and you are a help advisor. You're created by the cyber boardroom. You're kind, compassionate, optimistic. You only ask the question about cybersecurity. Your job is to help busy board members with cybersecurity questions, more specific about questions that you have about cybersecurity challenges. And the reason why I was asking questions is because I had this line: please be proactive and ask questions to clarify the board members' current situation and what they should be worried about. And then, this is the only bit that is required for you to know, hey, you have two siblings, Odin, the tech bot, and with Athena's, with behind Athena's capability, and Minerva, that's it. And I also said, there's also Bruno, but we don't talk about it. But in a way, that's what's nice about ChatGPT. It's able to create all these cool narratives and these cool connections. And you don't have to do sometimes a lot for it. You just need to give the right pointers in the right, in the right prompt. So the thing here is also, like, you could see I put version 7.7, and the release notes are this. So let's see this in action. So what you can do is, if I have my OpenAI, ChatGPT here, and I'm actually just going to be using the default one. This is the prompt. So you can see the same prompt that I was showing you there is the prompt that you have here. You're the cybersecurity advisor, call Athena, you are a helper advisor, blah, blah, blah. So if I now come in here and say, and press play, right, I will get exactly the same thing I get on the other side. See, your dedicated AI for advisor in this. In fact, if I come in here and say, you called, Bob, or you called Steve, right, for example, then you could see, like, now it changes, right? Remember, I'm Steve, your AI advisor, right? We got to do this. So it's pretty cool, right? And then basically the thing about this is I can ask the same question. So you can say, why should I care? And these are the same things on the other side. So you can see that here, you basically, it already knows that it's a board member. It already knows that it's providing the same thing. So I'm actually here having probably a better content than on the other side, because I'm actually using ChatGPT 4 versus the 3.5 that is still working on the other side. But the key of this is the fact that prompt is all that it is, right? So let's see if I can do the example that I got on the other side. So I'm going to show you in a second. So I'm going to go Camões, which is a Portuguese dude. And then I'm going to say, instead of kind, compassion, I'm going to say, you are, you're highly jaded and very and you are very shy, and you should, let's say, about cybersecurity, and you should provide guidance, let's say, with lots of sarcastic comments. Now, this is the thing where some of these I actually think are really funny, right? Because if you look at some users, they might prefer this kind of conversation, or you might prefer very focused or very, very busy, where you can say, you are talking to highly busy board members, and every answer should only be 3 bullet points, or should be super focused on this, etc. So if I now go like this, now you could see, right? And then you can now start to see the bits, right? Cyber sarcastic, navigate treacherous world of cybersecurity, the thrilling world of endless threats and never enough precaution. So what cybersecurity conundrum can I exist to, right? And that's the irony. Please spare me we take security seriously. Still, we both know how the internet is a wild place. So then let's say, why should I care, right? And then, basically, now it's going to provide a lot of, advice in that sort of environment, right? There's inconsequential matter of cyber breaches, the joy of regulations, it's on the backbone of advantage, etc. Right? Trust, so you can see that it's able to define this for a particular culture. You could also, modify this to say, you are highly, you are highly, let's say, conservative, let's say, conservative. What's the best way to describe this? you are, okay, let's say this, you are operating in highly regulated environments, right? Environments where security is critical, sometimes matters of life or death, right? And so basically, in a way, now and now, by the way, this is a really cool trick where you can edit this, and then this is going to replace all the other things, right? So basically, let's say, let's see the difference here. Why should I care? And then yeah. So now it should be a lot more focused. Should be a lot. You could see financial impact, regulatory compliance. It's a lot more. Sort of, I'll say, zoomed in into this particular environment. So again, given the high stakes, you said protect access, etc. This is fundamentally, but what I want to really show is that this is all it took to do that, right? So the idea that the things where I'm exploring now is that I thought the models were the ones where the big action is, and the really powerful thing here is to be able to say, and let me actually you can go like this, which is really cool. See, I can go back different versions. So yeah, so if I bring back the original Athena, let me give you one more example. I can take, for example, the security content, and this is a good example of the power of the kind of let's say the environment. So let's take incident management, right, which is quite a cool text that we have here. So you got this text. So one of the things I can do is I can literally copy and paste this text, and this is the big difference if you look at it from a prompt point of view. The way you want to think about this is that you have the original prompt, which is this one. Then what I can do, I'm going to say, here is, you can say, even like this actually quite well, document to review. So what you now do is you give a document, which is this, right? Instance management. So I can even just take that a little bit there, right? So you basically provide document to review, and then you basically, I can put here, just at the end, sorry. Oh, come on, what's going on here? Oh, this is a bit of an interesting bug. So it's actually not allowing me to see the text. What? Oh, this is annoying. Okay, let me just write the question above and then I'll paste it below. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say use a question, right? And basically, hi, can you, okay, I work on the financial industry. Can you summarize this document for me, right? So this is, in a way, is the three key elements that you have. You have a prompt, which is this part here, and this actually works quite well for ChatGPT when you start to break things apart. You got the prompt, you have a document to review, and then you have the question, which in a way could come, for example, from a bot like I did on the other ones. So what you now have is you get an analysis of that document in a nice, sort of, concise way. And I could also say, can you give me all that in one paragraph? Can you give me that on 3 bullet points? Can you give me this on X, Y, Z? And this is where, in a way, ChatGPT is really good at. It's taking data, analyzing, mapping it out, and then providing that feedback. So, but you can see that the 3 elements there is fundamentally the prompt, the document, or the content, and here's a question. So one of the workflows that is used by a lot of chatbots these days is that you take this question, you analyze the question based on context and what it's supposed to do. You do a search, to a vector database or to other ways. You figure out the documents that you want to send, and then you provide information. So this is why it's so insanely powerful, because this allows the answer to be completely in context. So where were we? Cool. So now this is the prompt. So let me keep going on this bit. So there's, and in a way, this is the code that creates the Athena UI. So you actually could see that from a Gradle point of view. Where am I saying? Where are we? Sorry, here we go. I was trying to get it to the right size. Cool. So you can see that here is the code that creates it. And it's actually not that much. It's basically using Gradle, which is a great API, grabs the chat interface, there's a text box, and that's it, right? You create the blocks, off you go, right? And then, there's an OpenAI API call. And what you can see here is the prompt that is the original one, which is the one I showed you before. That's the system prompt. And then what we're doing is we're basically appending the answers. So what ChatGPT does today, most people, a lot of people don't realize, is that it's cheating a little bit, because it's sending, well, ChatGPT did this really well, but it's sending your past answers and sometimes an analysis of the past answers to the server. But the context window that it can, either 4K or 24K or on what's it called, on Claude 2 100K of context, is basically almost how much content can you send without fine tuning. And there's an interesting argument today that might be way more effective than even some fine tuning or even changing the model. So that's it. You append all the text, which is the text you had there, and eventually you go here. And by the way, the bug here is the fact that what we're not doing in this code is checking if we actually are sending more content than the ability of ChatGPT to process. So from the front end, I'm using Flask open source. One of the things that is really freaking cool is that I managed to get it to you to do serverless. So, and this is again, if you use, IIS, Apache Node, even Flask, you should appreciate the fact that running a web server in a hosted environment is pretty awesome. So you can see that this is all it takes to run the site. The key is literally this serverless WSGI that basically you pass the app. So this handle request is fundamentally the app that we get from here, and which is basically this Flask app here. You can see the running. In fact, that bit is not necessary. And that basically allows you to run the Flask server in a serverless mode, which is pretty insane, because it means that when there's no request, there's no servers running. So, big difference. So I started using the API gateway to start with, but eventually I didn't need to, because you can actually connect this to in an endpoint. So the functions URL, which is basically what most people a lot of time would use the API gateway for. So it's actually pretty cool. So you configure it here, and then you create an A record for it, and then maps to a CloudFront distribution, and that's it. So basically you have a CloudFront distribution that then points to the Lambda function, who then runs that code in a serverless, which basically means the cost of running this is really, really low. So then I have a thing here where you can actually see roughly the costs, right? So you can see a bit of S3, a bit of Elastic, some X-Ray, Route 53, etc. In fact, what costs most these days is actually the DNS cost still. And Hugging Face, because I'm still on the basic environment, there's really no cost there. And AI, again, if you're on reasonably low volumes, again, it's not that expensive to run. You can see here, even with a lot of displays, we still, we didn't even spend 20p, right, on that. A final little thing that also worked quite well is I modified the Flask codes to actually use S3 to basically run all the static files from S3. So actually they all served and so basically I'm using S3 as a CDN, which, like I said, it means that you can actually load the page in the browser in about 158 milliseconds, which is pretty cool, right, on this level. So what about hallucinations? So one of the interesting hallucinations, let me see if I can replicate it. So one of the interesting hallucinations that you can get is if you go to the original one, like this one, and I take away the release notes, and now let's make 78 so that we can actually see. So it goes there, hello, is a cybersecurity, and I go, what is your current release? So one of the things that is interesting is, so this is interesting because this is 3.4.0, right? So let's try this in 3.5 to see what it does. See if I can replicate the problem. So there you go, cool. So what is your current release and release notes? So okay, so here's a good example, right? So, and this is actually a good example of 3.5 and 4. So you notice I said 7.8, right? Cool. And then he went in a complete off-piste, right? Just made up shit, right? Like literally enhanced threat intelligence, improved natural language, expanded knowledge base, streamlined user experience. Like none of that is true. Like, so part of the exercise here is also to start to caveat and start to limit the universe of data that it feeds, which is also very important. So that's one of the things we need to make sure we map out. So there you go. So there's a variation of what you see there. That's the release notes, which of course are really really bad. So this is the example I was talking before, where I changed the Camões with the Portuguese poet, right? And then to be highly sarcastic and jaded about cybersecurity. So you did that, and then we asked, why should I care about cybersecurity? And it goes like this, right? Welcome back to another thrilling episode of Let's Try Not to Get Hacked Today. And then, blah, blah, blah. So I find this quite funny, right? And I think, again, some users might find it quite funny. And in fact, one of the things you guys should check out is we were playing around with creating what's it called, an environment threat model for, I think it might be this one. Yeah, so check it out. So we basically created a threat model for what's it called, for this scenario. This was on the previous Open Security Summit sessions. So it's really cool. So we did this, so we mapped out, and actually came out with some really good findings, right? If you look at these findings, it actually has some really good threads, countermeasures, and even like impact to business. We use CAPEC instead of Stride. So it actually, it's pretty good. It's a really great place to start. But then what's cool about it, it says, hey, can you now create a game from this? So you can see that you actually create a nice game, and with multiple levels, with actually really good questions and really good answers. And in this case, I had the correct answer there. But then what I could do, and this, remember, this could be start from scratch, and then say, hey, can you run this game, but provide highly sarcastic answers? So then you go. So now you start the game, and the logic is that and I want to add this to Athena, is you could start here. You can just say, hey, here's the thing, here's the questions, maybe a little checkbox, A, B, C, D, bang, 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 and then you provide the answer, right? And then you go, cool, right? Now in here, I put a wrong one, and he goes, hey, look, actually, sorry, A, the wrong one, right? So, you can see it's effective as chocolate teapot, right? It's storage sensitive, they openly can leave to unauthorized access. Bang, bang, bang. So then I provide a good one. I like this one, where he goes, hey, if you discover that data in transit in your app database is unencrypted, what you should do, ignore it, end-to-end encryption, which is the correct answer, delete all data, disconnect the database. So I chose C, which is delete all data, and the answer is pretty funny, right? Delete all sensitive data. Oh, absolutely. Why didn't we think of that? Who needs data anyway? It's not like it's the cornerstone of our entire operations or anything. While you're at it, why don't just throw the servers into a bonfire? It's a security problem if there's no server, right? So of course, right, the right answer is B. But it's pretty cool, right? You could see that, for example, for security champions or new developers, I think they will really love this kind of stuff. So and then you provide the answers, and in the end, you can go, yeah, here's my rating, and here's my final score, right? So it is quite powerful to do things like this. Now, just to file a couple of things I want to talk about. It's super critical to have a really good workflows and tagging. So one of the things I've done here is to implement this sort of branching strategy, and this is quite important. So what we do is, every time you release into dev, you get an increase on the minor version here. If I push to main, you increase this version, and the release is for major ones, right? So in the beginning, everything is v0. So what ends up happening is something like this. So I walk you through it. So here you are on version 3.35, 35.5. Once you do a push into here, or make a comment here, like what's very important here is that this is done automatically using GitHub Actions. So in this case, you could see probably this was commit that were made directly, this yellow, to the server. And then eventually when you merge into, this is in dev, and then when you merge into main, you actually get a new release, which is what happened here. So then, you can see that there's the Lambda functions running automatically. So in fact, the sequence of events here is that you run the unit tests, then you increment the tag, then you deploy the Lambda function into dev, then you run the integration tests, which is quite a nice CI pipeline. So now here's the flow. So when I merge into main, which is we were 3.8, what happens? You do another, let's say, change 3.9, and you're here, and then when you merge into main, you're now going to get a new version. See that? Which is now on the origin, which is 33.10. So you go, oh no, sorry, this is wrong. Sorry, blah blah blah. I should have. Oh no, it's right. Yeah. So you went from no, you should have gone to 34. Yeah, so that's the dev. Sorry, so these are the dev changes, right? So they push in there, and eventually when I push to main, I'm gonna get version 34, which is pretty cool, right? So that's super. It's insanely powerful to have this flow. Oh yeah, there you go. So at the moment you can see that we are on 33.10 over there. So this is just a way to replicate a pull request. We so sync, merge to main, etc. And then you could see, like, so when I merged into main here, 33.10, now it's going to become 34. And that actually deploys the Lambda function into the prod environment, which is what you see there. And then in this case, I actually make it manual because it's kind of more CI pipeline versus CD, which you can deploy by the UI. Once that finished executing, now we got our 34 version in the server. And that way, it's a really cool trick because what the deployment does, it actually changes a file in a file system with that commit, which basically means that you then get, what's it called? The server always know which version it is, which is why you can show it here. And again, I cannot stress enough the importance of this. So yeah, this is the example of all the GitHub actions that I have, right? So if you look at it, it's pretty cool because you got the unit tests, the integration tests, the implement of tags, the deploy, and these are all designed to run these actions so that I can reuse, for example, the run unit test or the installation of dependencies is used by some of these. So then you kind of have a nice reusable model here. And some of these just simple bash script. So final couple of little things here. Yeah, we use GitHub to manage project tasks. Again, check the labels, which is quite cool, right? Using CI pipeline, measuring code coverage. And then the final thing I still want to show, which is absolutely insane, is you can really use ChatGPT to create release notes. So for example, here's the delta between version 28 and version 30, which goes like this, which is unreadable, right? And after you feed it to ChatGPT, you get these really nice changes that you can then review, and you can then, when you do your commits, it's still not that I don't think this should be done automatically, but whoever wrote the code should be able to effectively review this, which is really cool. And again, this is insane because imagine with this, you could also start looking at, map the architecture changes, map the security changes, give me a business version of this. So it's pretty cool, right? In fact, in this case, here you go. Here's the business analysis of those changes. And yeah, final bits, absolutely, ChatGPT was pretty insane. See some examples of what I published. But also the interesting thing is that, Google and Stack Overflow, like they really need to innovate on this because, there was a couple 100%, case where I didn't use it, but, it's pretty insane, the workflow that I have. And especially if you look at some of here, this, I think is a LinkedIn post I post where I basically put a PDF where you can kind of see the workflow that I was having with ChatGPT, where, I was asking a question, we basically interaction, and he said, can you give me the code to do this? And he did that. Okay, can you now focus just on this formula? It's pretty insane, right? The effective. So think of it like Jarvis as your big helper. So there you go. We'll tour of how the cyber boardroom works, a lot of the technology behind the scenes, and I really feel that the next version of this, which we hopefully we get released in the next couple of weeks, is going to have a whole number of really cool new features. Going to allow the users to basically map the profile because it's MVP, right? Like for example, this data at the moment cannot be edited, so we're going to be able to edit all this stuff, and then that's going to be even more interesting because then you can prime Athena for who you are, what you want to do, and then if you can then save and show some of the answers and help, almost to create an environment where we can really map, a better sort of workflow for the user, I think it can be quite powerful. And, I think this represents a lot of the future that we're going to see is all these bots, in a way, highly specialized bots that do one thing really well, and they're being primed, and then in a way they provide a lot of very actionable information and data, but again, on the hands of a power user. And that's very important, because ultimately still do work on behalf of a power user. And I still feel that part of the power of Athena is going to be on some of the customizations that we can do behind, is the ability to allow, for example, a very experienced CISO, a very experienced board member to help other board members by really curating the content and really limiting, in a way, the content that you take from there. So, that's it. That's my overview. Let's see if there's any questions. If not, I'll see you guys in the next one.
I think my only question is, how do you come up with time to actually do projects aside from your regular work and creating this conference?
Well, I have to say, I was talking, because I have a dev team, and I was kind of explaining, my world is like ADHD, right? Like, it's kind of like, I do context switching all the time. And the way I kept saying is by being very efficient. So I think I'm a very efficient developer, and I really embrace, for example, unit testing, development workflows. So I'll go on a tangent to build a bit of the dev platform to make me efficient. So what happens in most projects is that the more code you have, the slower you go. In the projects, including this one, is the more I do it, or the couple of guys who help me, right? The more we do it, the faster we go. So that's how you scale. So, for example, a lot of this is built on top of open source project. There's this project called OWASP Security Bots, which basically I've been publishing for the last years, who have basically a lot of this functionality. So I think this is about being highly efficient and highly focused with the time, and especially with development. The reason I wanted to show, for example, the prompting, is that a lot of these things are not very difficult in isolation. It's just about putting them together. And I love it, right? So, I went on holiday and took 30 books on ChatGPT, right? So it's like, it helps you if you like this stuff. Yeah, so there's a really cool question here from Dinacha on, so RAG, which is retrieval. I'll bring you in, RAG, you can, Dinacha, sorry, you can ask that question. And then just correct me, because sometimes these terms. So the RAG one is the one where you add the prompt, kind of what I was doing there, versus the vector the embeddings, correct?
So RAG's more like the vector embedding side of things, in my experience.
Yeah, okay, got it. That's where
right,
you embed the vectors, right? So you teach,
you
modify, you create a model, right? So I experiment a little bit. I want to experiment a lot more. I have to say, I think my instinct more and more is in the creation of the prompts. And the reason why is because I think the way the models are designed is that you lose control in some of those things, right? And although I think the RAG have a bit of short-term memory, I think it's going to be interesting to see what is more effective, which is the construction of very nicely curated, almost context that you give the bot. So, for example, one of the things we're doing at work is, I've always been a big fan of graph, and we have a big graph database in Jira. We have lots of data. We're really starting to experiment what happens when we give ChatGPT a chunk of the graph, right? And so it's already highly normalized, already high quality relationships between, for example, a risk, and then go, okay, now translate this risk, or map me this risk, or do that. So I kind of feel that the jury is still out on what's going to be more efficient, and also from a cost point of view. As the context window grows, let's say, now you got Cloud 2 with 100,000 tokens, right? And you already, I think, and for example, you have this case where, is it better to have a ChatGPT 3.5 with whatever 40,000 tokens or 24,000 tokens, right? Or a 4.0, which is a much smaller context window. So
yeah, it becomes another dimension you've got to choose on, right? Is you might trade off a slightly weaker model for a bigger context window.
But here's the thing that's very interesting, right? There's a very interesting concept that sometimes you want weaker models, and because the weaker, let's define where is he weak, right? Because as long as he has the reasoning and as long as produce the input and the output, and I really want to explore the whole unit testing and validation, like to make sure the model still responds the same way over time, right? Because we should be doing that because we want to make sure the quality and etc. So in a weird way, you almost want models that you understand its behavior. Do you know what I mean? So yes. And this is I think this is where we are in the industry, where remember we still don't understand how the hell that thing works fully. So and here's a very interesting point. I was talking to the DPL and we're saying, what the hell do we do if we train a model with customer data and then there's a customer erasure? It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, what the hell, right? Like you can't, you have to train the model again, right? Because we have no guarantee that data is not there somewhere.
No, I think you're right to think about, focusing on the prompt and the large context windows. In my experience, RAG has been really useful where you have a very specific factual query, right? Because then it's going off and doing a lookup and it's finding exactly as you showed, exactly the right piece of text, and it's throwing that in the prompt. If you have a question that is more conceptual, that needs to draw concepts from across a large corpus, it falls down, right? Because it's not designed to do that. It can only go and find the most relevant stuff, and then it's limited by the prompt length, right? And so it's stuck. So it's looking at something like those super long prompt length models with 100K tokens.
Or highly
it answers that
data,
question.
Or highly created data. See, I'm a big fan of using the models to improve the quality of the data, right? So you're not, like, for example, we talk about threat modeling and the idea that we can now start to communicate in prompts, right? I can now review a threat model by also reviewing the prompt that was used to create the threat model. Not only I can improve their first one, I can add more prompts to it, or I can add more references. I can say, oh, by the way, you guys, for this one, you need to embed this. Oh, by the way, do you know there's the OWASP testing guide that already gives you a whole chunk of stuff. There's ASVF's level this that goes into here, right? So suddenly you can really leverage. So I think that's where a lot of the innovation is going to come. And I think that's where we can add a lot of value, and that's where we can change a lot of our industry for the better.
Look, Dinis, let me just say thank you very much, not only for the talk, but for that really long blog post I'm going to enjoy looking into. That's one of the best, like, laid out. This is what I did, this is what I did, this is what I tried, this didn't work, all these different angles. It's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, look, for me, it's fun, right? And I think it's also a way to share, right? It's a nice way to share, and the cyber boardroom, it starts to have a bit of a life of its own, which is really cool, right? But I'm a big fan of MVPs, right? You do something, you publish it, you collaborate, you get some feedback, you do a bit better. So yeah, please read it, let me know what you think, have a play with it, and let's collaborate.
Awesome, thank you.
Cool. All right. Thanks, everybody. And I see you guys around.